Watch this.
It's a deliberate attempt by a small group of very successful people to undermine the vaccines.
An about-face by America's public health agency. Despite an abundance of evidence showing otherwise, the CDC now claims that evidence doesn't exist, and autism could be caused by childhood vaccines. Pediatricians call it politics over scientific practice. We now know the list of agencies Idaho's DOGE taskforce thinks could be cut or consolidated to save the state some money. A list now whittled down to a baker's dozen. The pediatric community woke up this morning to a new message from the Centers for Disease Control, a revisionist history, if you will, by revising the agency's stance on autism and vaccines. Right at the top of their vaccine safety webpage, they posted this. The claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because, well, studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. The page went on to say, because autism spectrum diagnoses have increased since the 1980s, right about the time infant vaccines also increased, it would be a shame for the scientific community to rule out this, quote, potential contributor. It did mention one study that looked at aluminum in vaccines and the rise in autism spectrum diagnoses. Then, while admitting correlation does not prove causation, that doesn't mean we shouldn't study it any further, according to the website. And then the website of the CDC falsely claimed studies showing a link between vaccines and autism have been, quote, ignored by health authorities. Except they haven't, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. Since 1998, independent researchers across 7 countries have conducted more than 40 high-quality studies involving more than 5.6 million people. This is according to the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's a lot of studies. That's what they said, across 7 countries. The conclusion is clear and unambiguous. There's no link between vaccines and autism. That timing, that date in that statement, by the way, since 1998, is important since that was the year of the Lancet study. They released a study that alleged a link between the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine and autism. Of course, that information scared a lot of parents, but that study was debunked and retracted 12 years later because of incorrect data and manipulation of that data. So this reversal by the CDC, which is under the RFK Jr.-run Department of Health and Human Services, just revives that debunked study. And apparently the change was made to the surprise of many CDC scientists. So we decided to ask a local scientist, a pediatrician with more than a dozen years of treating patients, to find out what he thought of the claim, vaccines do not cause autism, is not evidence-based.
It's like such an unhinged statement in its very face. You know, it says like that the statement that vaccines don't cause autism isn't evidence-based because it can't be, you know, it is not ruled out, is exactly the opposite of how we think of evidence-based claims. Proving something hasn't happened or proving that there isn't a link is not how we think of these things. We look for links and we don't find it. We don't try to make positive rule outs or positive proof of a lack of something. That's just not how things go. So when I see that, I think, no, this isn't a scientific statement. This is a political statement by a group of leaders that have an agenda and a narrative that they want to push.
I'm sure you've answered these questions over your career.
So many times, right? You know, because vaccines are this thing that is so important to the health of our children, and they prevent all these bad illnesses. But it's this thing as a parent that you have to do to your child that can make them uncomfortable. We could work with families and we could talk them into, we could lay out the evidence, we could show how important it was to prevent these illnesses. To have now to be fighting this uphill battle against like leaders of our health secretary and now the CDC, where they're like actively, you know, undermining the trust that we have in our institutions and in these tools that we have that are here to make kids healthy. It's just so disheartening and it's frustrating and it makes us so angry and it makes our job just so much harder. And we rely on the CDC, you know, people trust it. These institutions that we have that we're eroding our trust in, they're important to us all. And so now to have to, parents have to now what? They'll have to go to the CDC, they'll have to see what the American Academy of Pediatrics and the AMA and other groups of doctors say, and now they're going to be confused. They're going to think that, well, on one hand, these people say this, on the other hand, these other people say that, and they're not going to know what to think.
Do you agree with the statement by the AAP saying anyone repeating this harmful myth is misinformed or intentionally trying to mislead parents?
Yeah, and that's where I agree with what the AAP is saying there. And there's those two categories. There are a lot of people who are they're more of a victim of disinformation, but there's a small group of very successful people who are spreading disinformation. They have an agenda, and they have decided that vaccines are not good, and they want to sow doubt. They would like to take away the vaccines that we have, and if they're successful and more successful than they already have been, it's going to lead to a lot of kids getting a lot of vaccine preventable illnesses. Right now we can just prevent them. They would be completely needless illnesses, hospitalizations, and deaths that can occur from these illnesses.
Notice the asterisk following the vaccines do not cause autism header on the CDC website we showed you previously. It's carrying a lot of weight. That was to tell people they had to leave that statement on their website as part of an agreement to name RFK Jr. as the health secretary. But that obviously didn't stop all the other unsubstantiated stuff they put out there. We did receive a statement today signed by nearly 4 dozen organizations, from the American Academy of Pediatrics to the Autism Science Foundation to the Task Force for Global Health. They rejected this, quote, latest attempt to create fear around routine childhood immunizations. Some of our greatest medical success stories. Together, they said, they call on the CDC to return its long history of promoting evidence-based information in the service of protecting the health and well-being of all Americans. As always, if you are a parent of young children and you have questions and concerns about vaccines, please consult with your pediatrician, because it's clear you're not going to find a consistent answer online. All right, here we are, just outside of 6 weeks from the start of the 2026 legislative session, and the task force created at the end of last session, that would be Idaho DOGE task force, they met for the final time today. The goal was to come up with a final recommendation for what lawmakers might want to consider when it comes to cutting or combining agencies, in order to save money and generally make government more efficient. That list is now down to 13. These are ideas identified as low-hanging fruit. Joe Parrish shares that final list and the impact the exercise of audits has had on these agencies.
The DOGE task force will come to order.
Decision day for the DOGE task force, tasked with improving government efficiencies.
We'll dive into these consolidation of proposals 1 through 10.
The idea is to see where government can cut spending while also running operations better. Staff cuts, redundancies, and unneeded functions that could be served by other agencies, boards, or commissions. A final list of 10, for now, range from merging the Bingo Raffle Advisory Board with the Lottery Commission to eliminating the Honey Commission. An illustration of the work by DOGE was shown in a conversation about moving the STEM Action Center to the Workforce Development Council. Questions about effectiveness.
I appreciate the $300,000 reduction in the reduction in 2 full-time employees. And engagement is great, but I think we really should be able or should need to see tangible results. Do we have more Idaho students that are going into science and engineering to support our tech industry in Idaho? And if we don't, then I guess I question the $6 million that we're spending on it.
Co-chair Senator Todd Lakey touched on efforts the center has already taken to self-evaluate their processes. Wendy Sechrist, executive director of the Idaho Workforce Development Council, describes the process.
This is not an easy process. Starting with the stakeholder engagement was critical. Listening to parties, and we listened to both stakeholders of the STEM Action Center and stakeholders of the Workforce Development Council, because we were talking about a merger that impacted both agencies.
Sechrist was asked by the committee to describe the reality for other agencies that are set to take a look internally.
It is so hard to go through this process with all of the unknowns and be able to, maintain staff morale and living with uncertainty. Both of my teams.
While the process does have a human element, the goal is to make sure taxpayer dollars are being used well. That could call for consolidation or elimination. And in the end, the committee approved 6 of those actions to bring to the full legislature. The co-chairs were clear. Votes now don't signal ultimate action.
The recommendation is to move forward. Then we'd have to draft legislation, and that may, what's in there you may end up not liking. You may have recommended it and voted one way, but then when it gets to legislation, it may be something that you couldn't support. So I don't think we're necessarily bound individually by this, but I think it's important for us as a task force to do what we're tasked with.
So at the end of that meeting, there wasn't a grand total immediately available in terms of what would these 6 actions actually amount to in terms of savings and efficiencies, Brian. However, the task force is expected to meet sometime in December. But
I misspoke there. Okay.
No, that's all right. And as we circle back, though, to our first coverage, I guess, over the summer, where we had things like Veterans Affairs, these long lists that started community conversations, you can see now that the list of 6 now is drastically different than what we saw in those major lists. But at JFAC, just, I guess, 2 weeks ago, there was conversations that this will continue, and those listed items that were contributed from community members and lawmakers, this will continue. This DOGE task force is not just a point in time. They're planning on keeping this moving forward.
And considering the budget situation that Idaho is in right now, this list will probably expand as we get into the legislative session, just based on just budget requests in general.
Absolutely, and I know that all agency heads have been giving a heads up that JFAC's not going to be a place to ask for money. It's a place to tell lawmakers how can we cut costs.
You get what you get. All
That's
right.
right.
Thanks, Joe. If you grow stuff in the ground, there's a good chance you're going to have bugs that try to eat that before you can harvest it. Idaho farmers have been fighting pests for as long as they've been, growing foods worth eating. Sprays, tractors, traps, they've tried just about everything. Well, that is everything short of armor plating a potato. So naturally, as technology continues to evolve, the next logical step is to take that battle, I guess, to the sky. Hunter Funk looks at how the drones circling over hop yards and cornfields are doing a lot more these days.
Yeah, you nailed it. Okay, so it might be my worst nightmare, but it also might be the coolest thing ever at the same time.
Wait, drones or bugs?
Bugs.
Okay.
And specifically drones and bugs combined. Now, the company Theravada is using drones on fields to fight bugs with, yes, bugs.
We've done quite a few releases this year. In Idaho specifically, we do a lot of releases over hops. We're doing more and more releases in corn, and also mint are some of the larger ones, as well as we've done releases on some organic seed crops such as carrots this year.
This is what that looks like. Call it an insect air force, but there are different uses depending on the pests and the crop. But as an example, spider mites can be a big problem for crops. This drone drops predatory mites that eat spider mites onto the corn. Spider mites can lower the yields for farmers, and because the predatory mites are natural predators, it allows farmers to avoid spraying as many pesticides. It keeps things more natural and less costly. These drones can cover about 10 acres per load and up to 300 acres per drone in one day. But the drones can do more than just fight bugs with bugs.
Next steps is to just stay busy, do what we can, and we're always looking for new ways to utilize drones. We've done some testing this year on helping with stand counts and also with yield estimations in a handful of crops as well. So potatoes, sugar beets, things like that.
Now, coming up on the news at 6, we're going to look at other ways that we haven't mentioned that they're using these drones to help farmers. But, Brian, Idaho has a long history of getting creative with wildlife. I mean,
dropping things from the sky?
Yeah, parachuting beavers. You
Exactly.
nailed it.
I do have one question. Okay, so you drop these other mites to get rid of the spider mites. How do you get rid of those other mites?
Well, they're good ones.
They're the good ones? So,
Yeah.
like, if it comes to corn, that might have some? I guess I got to clean it, but...
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's going to happen. They're okay. So
They're
I
not
will
going to eat
say,
the product, though.
correct. You're still probably going to need a little bit of pesticides here and there, right? Because you can't fight all bugs with bugs. So, but it lowers the amount, lowers the cost.
Makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that at 6. Thanks, Hunter.
beautiful fall photos there, but it's looking a little bit more like winter up in the mountains. Check out the fresh coating of snow on the golf course in Sun Valley. As soon as my name goes away, there we go. And you can see Bald Mountain looking a little more white as well. 6 to about 8 inches of snow piled up on the snow stake at 8,900 feet in Sun Valley. Hard to tell exactly how much. There was a little bit already on the snow stake, but I think about half a foot or so fell there. Nothing in the west central mountains, just a skiff at Bogus. And in the lower elevations, we're seeing those clouds starting to clear. It's getting a bit brisk out there. We've dipped into the mid 40s across the Treasure and Magic Valley. So if you're headed out this evening, grab the coat. It's going to be chilly, but the precipitation is all but over and done with. A few little spot showers still popping up out there. But I think for now, at least this round of wet weather is done and over with. As this low pressure center dives to the south, it'll take most of that moisture with it. We have high pressure that will start building in from the west tomorrow. That will keep us dry and quiet all the way through the weekend. Then we're eyeing a system up in the Gulf of Alaska that's going to skirt by to the north of us late Sunday into Monday. Won't bring a whole lot in the way of precipitation. I don't think we'll see really anything. As far as rain goes here in the valleys, we may see some more light mountain snow. It's a system coming in a little closer to Thanksgiving next week that will likely bring some rain chances back to the valley. We'll have colder temperatures next week as well. I think for the first time this month, by Thanksgiving and the weekend after that, final weekend of November, temperatures get back to where they should be. In fact, maybe even colder than average by the time November wraps up. All right, looking ahead to tomorrow, because of the moisture and the low levels of the atmosphere and clearing skies overhead, another round of dense fog is possible tomorrow. So visibility could be an issue on your drive into work for your Friday. Clear skies overhead. We should enjoy a lot of sunshine. A weak inversion will likely set up. I don't think it'll be strong enough to keep us foggy all day, but that fog might be slower to clear in some spots, especially west of Boise. Temperatures early on tomorrow will be cold, mid-30s from Ontario through Boise out into the Magic Valley. We'll see 20s early on in the morning in the mountains, so bundle up big time if you are headed out early tomorrow. High temperatures tomorrow will land in the mid-40s in the mountains, another above average day. That will end up being our 21st day in a row of milder than normal temperatures. We'll see low 50s for most of the Treasure Valley, Boise up to around 50. We'll see 40s in the Magic Valley. We hold steady around 50 degrees through the weekend. Then we see that cool down next week that drops us into the mid-40s by Wednesday, with a few showers coming in for Thanksgiving.
Assisted suicide is considered murder in Idaho, and that's exactly what one Boise man has been charged with. Plus, while some may be questioning vaccines for their kids, I guess the question could be asked, would they be asking the same questions when it comes to their horses? Vets say there's a virus spreading to be worried about. Adriel Tackett has more details in today's 411.
Police arrested a man for murder after he says he performed an assisted suicide on his friend. 36-year-old Brian Jones of Boise is now booked into the Ada County Jail and appeared at the Ada County Courthouse today. Jones had his arraignment hearing where he appeared on Zoom in a green jail suit with an attorney also present in the Zoom box. At around 12:45 a.m. Thursday morning, Jones allegedly killed his friend at the America Best Inn near the Boise airport. Jones is being charged with murder in the first degree, and if it was an assisted suicide, that is still illegal in Idaho. The Idaho State Department of Agriculture wants owners to look out for their animals, strongly recommending all upcoming equine events to be canceled and urging a temporary stop on any horse movement in the state. It's because of EHV1, a highly contagious virus that can cause respiratory illness, pregnancy loss, and in severe cases, neurological disease. The virus spreads easily, direct contact between horses, airborne particles, even contaminated tack or clothing. Confirmed cases have been reported in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, all linked to recent competitive events. Idaho does not have any confirmed cases right now, but state officials say that's exactly why owners and trainers need to act fast. One of Idaho's iconic mountain resorts must delay opening day. Today, Sun Valley announced it won't start the season as planned on Thanksgiving Day, or the day after the holiday. The resort says the warmer weather has made it difficult for mountain crews to make enough snow to open. Hopefully within next week's cooler temps, Sun Valley will be able to make snow as soon as possible. Getting into the holiday spirit, you can now cut down your own Christmas tree in the Salmon Chalice National Forest, as well as the Boise National Forest. You must have a permit tag and make sure the tree you've picked is on public lands. Permit tags are available in the Forest District offices. The U.S. Forest Service says cutting down a tree for the holidays improves forest health. Check this out. Kindergartners in Mountain Home are learning how to ride a bike. This week, nonprofit All Kids Bike hosted its unveiling ceremony for the Learn to Ride program at West Elementary School through a grant. The class received 24 bikes, helmets, and bicycle gear to start cycling. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Audrielle Tackett.
Jacob from Nampa pointing out that correlation does not mean causation, saying one of the reasons we see higher rates of autism because we know how to diagnose it better than we used to. That's true. It's a larger umbrella. It's a spectrum, anywhere from, barely noticeable to pretty severe. Way fewer people throughout their lives are now living without knowing it, or not, I should say. So we're identifying it earlier and more often. So we can no longer rely on CDC for truth, just like the Idaho Central Health Committee after they appointed Dr. Cole and Raul Labrador, says Robin Meridian. Actually, that's on the Ada County Commissioners. They're the ones that appointed those two to the CDH, the Central District Health. The best DOGE could do is go after the Honey Commission, Sheep and Goat Commission, bingo, lottery, etc. That's what Kip wants to know. He's saying it's a joke. We said it was low-hanging fruit. Meanwhile, Lori's saying most of our Idaho lawmakers, that's the low-hanging fruit that needs to be plucked. Session coming up in about 6 weeks. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.